Now let's look at situation number 5 on page 70, and we'll just read it through together. Alpha owns 100% of the minerals and conveys all to Bravo, who conveys 3% of the oil and gas produced and saved to Charlie, and then conveys 100% of the minerals to David, subject to prior reservations. And then it wants to know, what does Alpha own, what does Bravo own, what does Charlie own, and what does David own? So let's just diagram this out. We'll start with Alpha. Alpha owns 100% mineral interest, and he conveys all of it to Bravo. So that means A no longer owns 100%, and B now owns that 100% mineral interest. B then conveys 3% of the oil and gas produced and saved. Produced and saved are buzzwords that we know means royalty interest. If it said under the earth, or if it used other terminology that spoke about the minerals in the ground, that would be different. But if we say produced and saved, that means he's only conveying a royalty interest. So he's conveying this 3% royalty interest, not a mineral interest, to Charlie. So now Charlie owns this 3% royalty interest. Okay? B did not give away any of his minerals, so he still owns 100% of the minerals. But then Charlie conveys 100% of the minerals to David. So now B no longer owns this 100%. David owns the 100% net revenue interest or mineral interest. That would be a mineral interest. We're not talking about net revenue interest because we don't have a lease yet. Okay, so what does A own? Well, A conveyed all to B, so Alpha now owns 0. What does Bravo own? Well, Bravo conveyed a royalty interest to C, and then he conveyed 100% to D, so B also owns 0. Charlie owns this 3% revenue, a royalty interest. Now, because he's only transferring a royalty interest, that makes C what we call a non-participating royalty interest owner. What that means is that he does not participate in any leases. You are not going to take a lease from C. You're going to take a lease from the mineral interest owner. So what it's saying is he's a royalty interest owner, but he doesn't have the right to participate in a lease. So it's a non-participating royalty interest. So that's what Charlie owns. He owns a 3% non-participating royalty interest. And that leaves David, who now owns 100% of the minerals. David owns 100% of the minerals, subject to this 3% non-participating royalty interest. That means if there's ever a lease taken on this property and there is a royalty given for that lease, let's say it's a 1/8 royalty, which is a 0.125 or a 12.5%. If David acquires or grants a lease and keeps 1/8, he still has to pay this 3% to Charlie. So rather than his interest being a 1/8 interest, now we're going to subtract this 3% interest. And that's going to leave, if it's a 1/8 lease, that's going to leave David with 9.5% net revenue interest. But we don't have this information yet. There's no lease currently. So don't be thinking the answer to this is 9.5%. All you say is that David owned 100% subject to this 3% non-participating royalty interest to C. Okay, let's look at number 6.